So I was reading into your consultation. Looks like you did some puppy training, did a board and train. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Lola's done puppy training, board and trains, and we had a trainer. We had them stay with a trainer for about a month. How
Oh,
long were they with Jeff? A month?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
an informal trainer.
Yeah, so
just like a family friend.
okay,
yeah,
Yeah.
he was a trainer, but he didn't give them any private lessons, just board with them
Okay.
while they were gone. So the board and train program that we did was in the north suburbs, and they were no longer in business after COVID.
okay,
So we're just looking for.
That was
a new
only for
trainer.
Lola, though.
And that was only for Lola.
Yeah.
Indiana's never had any formal training. That's why Lola has a prong collar. The trainer that she worked with in the north suburbs got her using the prong collar, and then Indiana's
okay. This was the 2-week board and train?
it was a 2-week board
Okay. And was this board and train to target the reactivity?
reactivity.
Okay. Did the trainer sell you the prong themselves?
Yes.
Is it the same prong?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to have you do is your prong looks to be caught over the purple collar, the flat collar. Is you're going to pull it up and then slide it up to the top of the neck there. There you go. Yeah. So that prong collar is probably a prong too loose, maybe from what I can tell. But if you pull up and then press down on the hindquarters, Lola should sit, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and do that.
Lola, sit.
There you go. Okay. So you hired you did the board and train to target the reactivity. Did you notice any difference?
She was really, really reactive on the leash before.
Okay.
We were able to actually go on a walk with her.
That's good.
Usually quite peacefully, I would say.
Okay.
I personally don't feel confident, like even taking her off of the leash, just because of how reactive she is.
Okay.
So I started taking them out on runs, and with time, and I think the more tired they get, the less reactive her specifically she becomes.
Okay.
So that's gotten a little bit better, and we run with the prong collar as well, but otherwise she does tend to be pretty reactive to like birds and squirrels, and sometimes to people. Only like when we're leaving our apartment building and she sees other dogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anytime she's on leash, she's extremely reactive.
Yeah.
If we're at a dog park and she's off leash and there are other dogs, she won't react to them unless those dogs approach us.
Okay.
But even if she's met those dogs before, has had very positive interactions with those dogs, once she's on leash, her behavior switches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the board and train, did you get any follow-ups?
We did have 3 follow-ups after
Okay,
that.
that's good.
And we had a trainer that we did like 3 sessions with.
Okay.
But yeah, none of them are really around, so we're just hoping to establish a new relationship with a good trainer.
Do you know what was covered in the board and train, like sit, stay, heel?
Sit, stay, heel. Heel was the big one. And stay was a big one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about recall?
If they did, she's horrible at it.
Okay. So in your follow-ups, did you use all 3 of your follow-ups for your board and train?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Right when COVID hit.
Oh, I see. So the training happened, COVID happened, and then kind of like,
And then we had, yeah,
I gotcha. Okay.
Lola, you sit.
When you did any of the follow-ups, what was it like to help cover the reactivity, or was it just a general like this is what your dog learned? Okay,
More so that.
gotcha. And then is your intention to train both of these dogs, just Lola? Okay. How old is this one?
Indiana's 5.
She's 5. Okay. She's got a sweet face.
She is. She's very sweet, but she's so anxious.
Mm.
I mean, the other day we were at the park, and I can let her off leash. We usually let her off leash because she tends to go potty better that way. but she like, you know, a little kid approached her and she like immediately got scared, so she started barking. So she's very reactive in that way when she gets scared.
I see.
She's easily startled, so I think we like really want to just socialize her and make her a little more comfortable, but
Okay.
she's like very suspicious, very anxious, very on edge.
When do you see that behavior? Is it like just like in this case you said a child approached her?
I feel like at all times. I mean, like if I drop something behind her and she like doesn't see it, she'll like immediately like get very startled and
Okay.
like run away.
Has she been around other kids before?
Yes. I mean, I personally haven't seen her with kids, but from what you've told me, she's maybe not had like the best experience with them when she was a puppy.
Okay.
But other than that, no, she's very distrusting. She
Okay.
hates men.
Okay.
Yeah, she's much more reactive with men.
Is this outside? Is this coming in the home?
Coming in the home, she's reactive to everyone.
Okay.
Outside, if she's on leash, she's reactive to nobody.
Okay.
And dogs, she's not reactive at all when she's on leash.
Okay.
But the moment she's off leash, she's very reactive.
Interesting. So she's the opposite.
Yes.
So this one on leash reactive, off leash fine.
Yeah.
This one on leash fine, off leash react. That's
It
funny.
becomes really hard to like control the environment since we'll take them both out together, and then they both are just like on complete opposite spectrum.
Yeah.
But she's very dependent on Lola. So if Lola reacts to a dog, she will too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and
she follows. She's a follower.
She follows the lead for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gets really anxious without Lola, so if I take them on separate walks, Lola does fine, Indiana does not. So
Okay.
we can't even split them up.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Start throwing a fit.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, she'll whimper and
She'll get
sometimes
anxious.
she'll urinate on herself.
Oh wow.
Yeah. She urinates on herself when she's scared and sometimes when she's like really happy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've had her for how long?
It's
On and off. Yeah, so my ex actually adopted this dog when Indiana was 9 months old. She spent
Okay.
most of that time prior in a shelter. She was in 2 or 3 different shelters until she was adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my ex and I broke up, Indiana ended up with us, and I think that was 2022, October.
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah.
But I mean, the moment that they were separate, like she was like pooping on herself. She was very anxious, like she wasn't eating. And then once they were reunited, she was much better. So we ended up taking up both.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So is it instantaneous that you'll see like the peeing or the pooping, or is it like 30 minutes and then she'll pee herself?
Instantaneous. Like the moment she's scared, like sometimes,
Interesting.
you know, like if we notice, you know, there was a treat on the counter and it's gone, and we start yelling at Lola and asking Lola if she took the treat, like Indiana would have already heard one of us screaming
Mhm.
Yeah. She gets scared.
urinated on the dog bed.
Okay.
Or she'll get on the couch and I don't let them go on the couch, so I'll like say like, "Hey, Indiana," and like if she's on there, she'll like kind of freeze, and then you'll see a little bit of pee on the couch.
Okay. Wow. So very soft.
Yeah, she's so soft.
Gotcha. Okay. In the off-leash scenario where she becomes reactive, is it like dogs just like overwhelming her, like in her personal space, like she's just bothered?
If she's like slowly approached by a dog, I've noticed that she's usually fine.
Okay.
But I think it's usually like the unknown or like it's,
Sorry to interrupt.
or it's usually like the unknown of like a child suddenly like coming up to her or like a bird that she'll like become reactive. And she's like it's more so like she's scared.
Just startle response.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she definitely does. Well, Lola of course has a huge prey drive, but Indiana does too. So yeah, they'll just chase squirrels or birds.
Okay.
The moment Lola barks at a dog and reacts, Indiana reacts as well. But prior, like Indiana would have acknowledged the dog, had absolutely 0 problems. And the moment Lola does anything, then it's
Gotcha.
And then the moment we like get Lola to stop, Indiana just like shuts off and then, you know, totally to herself again,
Mm-hmm.
totally normal. So
Okay.
sometimes I wonder if she even knows what she's barking at.
She can sit though.
That's all she can do.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't even get her to do down because she gets a little scared.
Okay. That'll be good. How'd you find us or find me?
We found you via Google.
Google?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we looked at 6 or 7 different trainers, so we're just kind of hopping around. We really enjoyed how much material that you post onto YouTube and just a lot more accessible. I think a lot of other boarding trains that we were researching were just seems really volume centric,
Mm.
and we're focused on or just providing a service rather than just building on training. Kind of like a teacher, a man of fish kind of vibes. So we really enjoyed all the content that you were putting.
Oh, thank you. I've been doing. It's on and off because you can always tell when I'm busy because you won't see me on YouTube for a while, aside from like consultations. And then like right now, like I've been doing some like prong collar stuff, e-collar stuff, like how to fit it correctly, like simple stuff that can help a lot of people. I like doing since my niche is aggression. People ask like, what happens if your dog's attacked by an off-leash dog or whatever? Like I like to cover the stuff that I don't see a lot of other trainers covering because obviously there's a need for that information, and I actually happen to know what to do in those moments. And those videos tend to do well, and they're very educational because typically if you see a dog attack, like everybody's panicking, you know. So, like I had a streak where I did like 4 or 5, like I did once a week, and then I got super busy, and then I just haven't done it because I do everything. So I run my business, I train dogs, I do the board and trains, I edit my video, I record my video, I do the audio editing, plus all the other stuff that I do with running a business. So I appreciate that you've gotten some value from that. So in regards to the 2 girls here, it's just interesting because they're like the opposite of each other, you know. So with Lola, with her being on leash, reactive, off leash, sociable, correct?
Yes.
Right? Do you know why that is?
Even if she's off leash and she's near us and another dog or another person approaches, she immediately comes back by our side. If she's off leash and I touch another dog, she'll become very aggressive.
I see. Okay.
So I think she's very territorial or very possessive over us.
Okay.
So we make it a point to not pet other dogs at the dog park. And we keep distance from other people.
So if you're at the dog park and is she able to then go into like the group that's playing?
Yeah.
But the issue is she returns to you, and if a dog then follows, is you're going to see that territorial behavior.
Yeah.
I
Or
gotcha.
if just like a dog comes up to us and approaches us,
Okay.
she'll just stop, drop everything she's doing, and come.
Gotcha. Will she intercept?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of times, what I've seen with clients is they're like, well, my dog's reactive on leash, but then off leash, like they're completely fine. And they always kind of get confused because they don't understand. So we have 4 stress responses: the fight, flight, avoidance, submission. Have you heard of these? Right? Fight or flight are like the 2 most common you may hear about. So those are typically the first 2 response. Do I fight this threat or do I run from the threat? Right? So if a dog is on leash, that flight response is removed, which is why they're more likely to become reactive, which is a fight response. When they're off the leash, now it opens them up to the flight response. That a lot of times you don't see reactivity because the dog goes, I can escape danger if I feel threatened. Okay, so at least in that degree, it explains her behavior aside from like the territorialness. right? Which I would agree that's correct. She's capable of being social, but then the moment she's like, oh, that dog I don't know is getting too close to my owner, I'm going to go in and intervene. That would be, of course, fight response, because her seeing the dog coming into your space is stressing her out. So then the stress response is her to come fight the problem. Okay. She seems to be, for the most part, flight, right? Like with the expressing or the pooping and the peeing and stuff. That's just like high flight, like urinating themselves type of thing. But I just find it interesting that she's like the opposite of this dog. What are your goals for the training?
We're very flexible on the goals. We just really want to have some sort of progress with Indiana and her reactivity. When we have guests over, it's really stressful for us because Indiana will be barking. We're also unsure how Indiana will react to certain individuals, but like very confident that she'll be very reactive towards men. So, you know, we constantly have to try to find ways to make Indiana more comfortable with the situation. Like we're asking our friends to buy her little treats the moment they enter.
Does she accept the treats?
Yeah, sometimes.
She will.
She will.
She'll soften up eventually.
Yeah, but it takes a lot more time with men than it does with others. And she also barks and lunges at people. She'll also get nippy.
And this is all with the entrance of the home. Okay, so all the problem towards people is within the home?
I would say so.
Yeah, within a
Mostly.
space that she feels comfortable, she does that.
Yeah.
If you're at the park sitting on a bench, she's sitting next to you kind of like this, and someone just approaches, do you expect you'd see something there?
Totally fine, unless
It depends.
like sometimes she'll react to men. Sometimes, as I mentioned in the beginning, we'll have her off leash. Her recall is really good. So if it's 3 in the morning at night, and I know no one else is out, I'll have Indiana off leash with me, and I'm holding Lola. And a couple weeks ago, we were walking by, and there was a man walking maybe 50 yards from us, and then Indiana immediately started barking and also charging towards that person.
Okay.
And that's probably happened maybe 2 times.
Okay.
Where
Always from a distance though? Late at night?
shorter distances, yeah.
Okay.
She'll go up to them.
What about time of day? Late at night, during the day? Doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so specific. I haven't really understood why she is reacting to that specific person.
Okay.
I feel like I don't see a pattern actually, because sometimes like
Yeah.
it's mostly like if it's unannounced, right? If she's like startled by something that's coming at us like unannounced and like not slowly. Sometimes it'll be just with like I guess a random person where she senses a vibe, like one of Angela's employees, like every time she sees him, even if it's like a gentle like walking towards us, like she'll immediately just react.
Yeah.
Even if like this person has never heard her or like so it's I think personally for me, my goals for them, and I don't know a lot about dogs and this might sound naive, but my goal is to socialize them. I feel like we are always very anxious with having them around. When taking them out, I feel like I feel like I have like 2 kids who don't know how to act, like so I really want to socialize that. I want to be able to sit in a patio and have a cup of coffee without them like reacting at other dogs or other people as appropriate though, right? Because I think also as 2 women, we also want them to continue protecting us, right? So it definitely feels like a tricky balance.
Okay. And I that's a good question and a good point, and I'll talk about it because that does come up a lot in regards to like security, right, from dogs. Actually, the client I had this morning for an in-home, we were talking about home security and all that stuff, So for Indiana, When it comes to like that startle response, it's usually a nervous thing. Okay. So we all feel these emotions at some point in our lives: fear, anxiety, nervousness, anger, right? Unless there's some kind of disability, maybe a hormonal imbalance, something like, for the most part, every human's going to feel this emotion in life, right? Same thing for animals. There are, with humans at least, especially now, I feel like anxiety is much more prevalent, or it's much more common than what it was like when I was growing up, you know. For dogs, similar. There's some dogs that are wired to just be more nervous, to be more fearful, to be more anxious. I'll blend, right? There's some dogs that are super tolerant and just takes a lot before they become stressed out or anxious or anything like that. And that's not anything that you did wrong. A lot of the time, it's just genetic stuff. Okay. When I get clients that have a dog that has behavioral issues, a lot of times they contribute it to abuse because they get the dog from a rescue or something. Super common thing to come across. And I go, maybe, maybe not. At the end of the day, whether it's genetics or abuse or what have you, it doesn't affect how we're going to fix the problem. You know, it's more so to give the person peace of mind. But when people come in with the abuse thing, it usually holds them back because they carry a guilt. And their intention is, well, I want to give this dog the best life ever because they had a traumatic past life. And I'm like, the dog does not care. Yeah, they don't. They're way past that now. Okay, but yeah, people tend to hold on to it, and then it just keeps the dog stuck. You know, so I'm here obviously to help them with that stuff, and then help the dog progress past that. For the most part, what I can tell you is like the reactivity stuff, in my opinion, is the easiest thing, or one of the easiest things to address. Obedience, even easier. Okay, the most difficult thing that I can see happening, or us having to address here, is her startle response. Okay, because the fact that she urinates and sometimes even poops herself. Okay, I do have an idea of her making progress, and I'll explain why. With when booking this, I'm assuming you looked into our methods of training. We use e-collar and prong collar, right? Prong collar is a great tool. However, prong collar takes a bit more technical skill, okay? Because it's very leash dependent. A lot of times, you know, a lot of my clients are, their dogs are leash reactive. And what happens is people have a hard time relaxing because they're so always assuming when the dog's going to be reactive, is they kind of get stuck like this, and they're keeping this kind of constant tension on the dog. For the prong collar, do you know why it's designed the way it's designed? Like why it looks that way?
It's a dog bite.
It's a dog bite, okay? Out of like 20 people that I've asked that question, you're the first person that goes, oh, it's meant to mimic a dog bite, right? A lot of people see it and they go, oh, it's spiky, it's meant to stab the dog, it's meant to hurt them. And they go, no, that's actually not, I mean, it looks that way because of human interpretation, but it's meant to mimic a dog bite, okay? So if I have a client that has a hard time relaxing and they pull up on the leash, they're essentially biting the dog. And if they're never relaxing, then the dog never knows what they did wrong and what they were doing that was right. Does that make sense? So here, I would stop petting Lola, okay? And you're gonna pull up on your leash, you're gonna press down on the hindquarters again. Now Lola is anxious right now,
Yeah.
okay?
She's really good at taking commands. If I pull up on the prong, she'll take the command.
Mhm.
But she's anxious. She's bored. She doesn't want to sit.
Mhm.
You know, she'll do this. She also gives me her paw very unprompted.
She good with people?
She's good with people.
Okay,
She
may I
jumps-
take her?
Yes. And she jumps,
We
which
have
is
another problem.
another goal that we would have. Is that she jumps a lot.
Gotcha.
She'll jump on her 9-year-old grandmother, and that's not good.
Yeah, it's not, no, we definitely don't want that. Good. Okay, so she's anxious. When we go to touch, our intention typically is to soothe or to relax, but touch is a reinforcer, right? So really what you're doing is telling her, yes, you should be anxious right now, okay? It's a very common thing that people do. I understand, I was watching what you were doing, and I know what you're trying to do, but I'm going, you're not doing what you think you're doing. You're actually telling her you should feel anxious right now, okay? So what she actually needs is direction, okay? So that's why I took the leash, did the same thing essentially that you're doing, but I don't say sit here, okay? Obedience is physical. It's a sit, put your butt down. But mentally, the dog is anxious, okay? So what do I want the dog to do?
To sit on their own.
Not sit on their own. Be calm. Be relaxed, okay? So when you use words, that's the physical component. Here, you see me kind of pressing on her. It's telling her to sit, but on a deeper level, it's telling her to relax, okay? With children on the spectrum with autism, when they have service dogs, the dogs are trained to sit on them because the pressure helps calm them. Even humans, we have weighted blankets now that help like people with anxiety sleep. That pressure helps relax them. It's the same thing for dogs. Here, when with the prong, this is a form of pressure, or when I put my hand on the hindquarter, that's also a form of pressure, right? So I'm gonna keep repeating this every time she moves. I'm not gonna tell her a thing, and eventually she's gonna start to become more calmer, okay? Because I'm breaking the cycle. Anxiety wants to move. She's a perfect example, right? Putting her paws up, whining, going back and forth, right? We can see the kind of vigilance here. But eventually, as I keep disrupting the cycle, she's gonna go, you know what? Jesse's not letting me do what I usually do. And she's gonna start to counter herself. Is she gonna be great? No, this is just a Band-Aid so that we can have a conversation, okay? You having her on a prong collar gives us a little bit more communication because we have that bite effect. You know, a lot of times I see clients with their dogs on harnesses, which just extrapolate the problem and makes it worse. But what she's really needing is direction, okay? So obedience and behavior, two separate things. So you want to think of obedience as education, sit, stay calm, math, English, science. And think of behavior as morality. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, don't jump, don't bark, don't bite. Does that make sense? So people, when they're trying to address anxiety, are using education. Does that make sense? But they don't overlap with each other. Math doesn't help an anxious person. Science doesn't help a nervous person, right? It's understanding how to deal with those things. So here, by me just putting pressure and giving her constant direction, and like here, like you see her kind of moving towards you, right? Because she wants you more so as a safety blanket, because she's in an environment she's uncomfortable. And I'm going, that safety blanket is not available to you. So it's gonna cause her to become more stressed. And it just keep repeating, and eventually she's like, well, that's not an option, that's not an option, pacing's not an option, whining's not an option. What's my option? Relax. But I have to be very patient with all these things, right? So this actually, the consult that I had before you, very similar, but like 5 times bad. Okay, yeah, it was a very anxious dog. And he calmed down by the end of class. He was still anxious, but he was like laying down and finally relaxing. And I told the owner, it's because you've been very consistent with telling the dog, like, just sit still. And eventually you start to impact the brain. The brain can only be anxious for so long. At some point, you have to let it go. Any emotion, at some point, you have to let it go, right? So like, have you ever been mad about something and maybe you're mad about it for a while, but eventually like it just passes? And then maybe a few days later, something reminds you of it, or you see the person that pissed you off and you get angry again, but you're not as angry as you were the first time, right? It's similar for dogs. When you start to confront them and challenge them with keeping their emotions in check, so to speak, it starts to get easier and easier and easier, okay? And obviously with like remote collar, it's even easier because I have something that can cut through everything if needed, right? So we get some dogs that are so anxious, like you could be maxed out on the collar before they even feel anything, okay? So going back to Miss Indiana here, is remote collar could potentially toughen her up and help her with that startle response where she's not always urinating, okay? So the way this works is, are you familiar with the technology of e-collar, like what it is? No? Are you? What is it? Yeah, I saw that, her little.
The static, right?
It's like a miniaturized TENS unit. Yeah, miniaturized TENS unit. Have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist? Sorry?
I
I recognize tens unit.
Okay. Have you ever seen those like commercials where it's like you wear a machine that moves your ab muscles and it's like workout while you watch TV? It's a muscle stimulator. So a lot of people think of it as like electrocution, which is incorrect. It's not electricity running through your dog's body. It's a centralized, current to a degree that just stimulates the muscle. So if you put it like, for example, on the fatty part of your palm here, you would see your thumb move because it's moving this muscle that then moves your thumb. Okay, so it's a muscle stimulator. They use it all the time in sports therapy. They even have like a needle that'll go into your muscle so they can penetrate deeper and target certain muscles, and they'll turn the machine on and it'll start to contract it on its own. So it's a muscle stimulator, and the way I like to think of it is like a bite on a button. Okay. When conditioned correctly, I want the dog to interpret the collar similar to a dog bite. So like right now with this whining, if she was already conditioned on the e-collar and I decided I'm going to correct this anxiety, I would press the button, and if it's set to the correct level, it would snap her out of this anxious mental state. Okay? And then she'd lay down and she would relax. So it's hard for people to understand, to think that a correction or something that we would deem as bad could help a dog learn to calm down. But it's because dogs aren't like people. Okay? Dogs correct whatever they disagree with. So if a dog came up into or in your space, for example, hey, right, whatever, they're going, get out of my owner's space. They're correcting that because she's deeming that to be unacceptable. But we can also correct emotional responses. Let's say I'm walking with Indiana and there's a car backfire, boom, and it spooks her and she panics. I can correct the panic. So what happens is she spooks, she's already been conditioned. I correct her for getting spooked. She snaps out of it and then hops back in line, right? She hops back to my side or what have you. And then the next time it happens, you'll see her get spooked, but then she's going to recover more quickly because she's anticipating there's going to be a correction, okay? But that's what helps them learn to recover more quickly and or not even respond in the first place, okay? The other thing is dogs toughen up their puppies through nipping and biting, okay? So if the e-collar is like a bite on the button, I'm going to be nipping and biting her. It's going to put her under stress, okay? I might see her piddle in response, and I would work her through it. And eventually she's like, hey, I can handle this, right? And they start to toughen up, but I don't mean like toughen up like, they're getting, tough. It's they go, I can handle more stress. So when I said, oh, she's a very soft dog, it means her tolerance for stress is very low. Does that make sense? So with the e-collar, it's what's known as a stressor. Like right now, your dog's under stress here, right? Me just keeping her away, right? So if I have the remote collar and I put the dog under stress and I work them through it and the dog comes to the other side, they go, oh, the thing that was stressing me out was actually telling me or helping me do what I need to do, and everything was fine once I did it. So like I have a puppy that just finished a 2-week board and train, was scared of everything, okay? And the owners weren't challenging her. Me getting her to climb, do I have one here? Placemats, like dog beds? It's like this high. And I went to get her to climb on and she freaked out and started like panicking, bucking around like an alligator. And I had to like put her on. And then once she went on, she was like, oh, it's okay, right? It's the brain assumes the worst and I'm there helping, guiding them through it. And then eventually once they complete it, they go, oh, all of that was in my head. There's nothing for me to freak out about. But that's how you build the confidence, okay? Most people either won't do that or they don't know how to do it in a way that is going to help the dog learn to overcome those kind of mental obstacles. Does that make sense? Questions so far? So here, with Lola, so you see how I go to press her hindquarters? Do you think she's being aggressive or do you think she's giving a correction?
What was the question? If she's being
Do you think she's being aggressive or do you think she's giving me a correction? So did you see when I went to touch her hindquarter where she went like that? Is that aggression or a correction? A correction. Okay. A lot of people, when they see that stuff, they go like, oh, the dog's getting more aggressive. I go, no. she's going under stress because I'm not allowing her to do what she wants to do, which is to move and to return to you. And I'm trying to reposition her back into that relaxed state. She gets overwhelmed and goes, who are you to tell me to stop being anxious? Right? Because she's never met me before, right? So in the dog world, another dog can come in and just assert themselves and take control. Do you guys ever watch Cesar Milan, the dog whisperer?
No.
No, old Mexican guy on TV?
Episodes when, I was playing on Animal Planet.
Sure, yeah.
I
So,
haven't seen it.
in a long time, yeah. So Cesar Milan's, he's very good. My baseline is Cesar Milan, okay? And people would always be amazed of him going into a home and just establishing control. And they're like, how could he do it, right? Or how does he do it? Part of it is because he has no relationship to the dog. So he comes in and goes, we're not gonna do that. That's essentially what I just did right now. I said, may I see that leash? I took the leash, and since then I've been consistent with giving direction to Lola. That's what's causing the frustration, okay? So for him, when he would come in, it would be easier because there's no relationship. What makes it difficult for a lot of trainers is that we have the existing relationship, but then the behaviors that we're also trying to correct. Does that make sense? So usually the client has to overcompensate to a degree because they're having to retroactively fix 4 years, 2 years, 2 months of established relationship. And the dog is like, you've not told me what to do for 2 years. And then all of a sudden you want control over me, right? And that's where the hard part is. Obedience is simple. Getting a dog to sit, to lay down and all that stuff, anybody can teach that. To teach it reliably is different. To get the dog to respect the command and listen to the owner and perform it reliably when told is a little bit more difficult because of all the things we're also trying to fix in terms of the relationship, okay? Now you notice how she's been quieter now, right? But we had that big flare up and then I just was patient. Nope, nope, nope. She finally sat down. I gave her relaxation. She's just kind of sitting there. Right? So things always get worse before things get better. That's just part of the process, okay? Questions on any of that stuff?
So is the assumption, for example, in this circumstance, let's say, the more that we do that, what you just did, the less she'll do the whining and like the anxiety?
If you have the correct tool to override the stress, right? So with the prong collar, like this is decent, right? But if you do just prong collar, you're gonna hit a ceiling at some point. And then you're gonna find like, oh, like prong is good in these situations, but in these situations, like it's still just like same old Lola. So that's why I do remote collar. Remote collar is much more easier for the average dog owner to replicate. With this prong collar, let's say I did a physical correction, right? You ever done that where you pop the leash? I think I saw you do a couple times where you kind of pulled up a little bit, right? Is if I decided like, oh, you need a firm correction and did a firmer pop here, I'm gonna be stronger because I'm a larger person, right? But then if I gave her back to you and I said, you need to correct her the same way I corrected her, and you're unable to correct with that same level of strength, now we have a discrepancy. And the dog's gonna go, okay, he can give me a 10 correction, but you can only give me a 5 correction. And that gap is what's gonna keep the dog behaving the same. With remote collar, we don't have that. If I press it at 35 and you press it at 35 and you press it at 35, it's the same. It also helps me overcome gaps. I have some clients, I actually just had one like 3 months ago. Lady was like 70 years old and she got a English Bulldog Shih Tzu mix, okay? It's a large dog, about 70 to 80-ish pounds. The lady is probably 70 to 80-ish pounds herself. Okay. My advice was like, because she was moving to New Jersey, I said, get a trainer in New Jersey because I'm foreseeing you're going to need help long term and I don't want to start you off and then you go somewhere else and it's a completely different theory. She didn't care. She wanted the dog trained now. I said, fine. But let's say my number with the dog myself was 25. Her number might be 55 because she's a softer, older energy and the dog's going to see that difference. Right? So I can also make up for gaps like that through more pressure on the collar to ensure that the dog, respects the owner.
Yeah.
Oh, I do, sorry. Yeah, there you go, thanks. So yeah, either it's gonna be universal or like sometimes I get some clients where one person is softer than the other, right? So then the person who's more assertive might have a lower number, whereas the softer person would have a higher number. So it's just a lot easier to close the gaps in those kinds of situations. Or we get dogs that are just far more confident than the owner, and then owner's gonna have a higher number because we have to compensate for that dog's confidence. And sometimes the dog is maybe like an Indiana, super soft, and the owner's very low in the collar. So there's a lot of variables. I help you obviously figure all those things out, but that's why I train with remote collar. Right off the bat, I get off-leash control. It's very easy to teach. You got basic common sense. You can figure it out. I'm not worried about the size of the person. I'm not worried if it's a male, female, age for the most part. I mean, there's some limitations there to be realistic, but I've had it happen where I come in, I'm like, why did you get this 120-pound German Shepherd when you're 65 years old? Oh, I have had 10 German Shepherds my whole life, but this one, I go, exactly. So like, get a poodle, like get a little miniature dog or something, but it happens. So, and also transference is very high. With prong collar, if you don't know how to use it correctly, transference is gonna be low, okay? Because it's more technical skill. Whereas remote collar, there's some technical skill, but it's very simple. It doesn't require you to learn to be a dog trainer to get the results that you're wanting, okay? Which is why it's my go-to tool. I've been training dogs on remote collar for 15 years now, okay? Question on any of that stuff?
That sounds incredible. To just have more consistency across, I think Lola is a very intelligent dog, and to have a little bit more consistency across correction would be very beneficial. I think there's a lot of confusion because of how she's worked with trainers in the past, and me then getting Lola and then not being privy to everything that all the training that has happened with them,
Yeah.
that has happened with them, and that not being transferable makes so much more sense. And
Yeah.
if we're playing a game of telephone, because then I'm telling, Evelyn, like, this is what I think Lola learned, and I think this is how we're supposed to correct her on the prong collar, but, we've got one session after her board and train, and then COVID happened.
Yeah, that was unfortunate, yeah.
So it's like, I think this is how it's supposed to be.
And unfortunately, if you go on, I mean, I haven't searched in a while, but from what I can tell in the dog training world, if you were to like Google how to correct a dog with a prong collar, you probably wouldn't find anything because those trainers would be attacked online because it's looked down upon. Like we just randomly, last night, so not probably 24 hours ago, got a random 1-star review from a person we've never met before. And you can tell if you read the review, the review is something along the lines of like, I would never train my dog with an e-collar, a prong collar, boot camp, or a muzzle. That's just not for me. Like there's nothing like I went to Jesse and he's an asshole and he's got his head up his ass.
Based on difference in principle or
Yeah.
teaching philosophy.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but just how it is. So I am very big on making sure that we have transference. Okay. I think I saw you're looking into a board and train. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the board and trains, what's very distinct about ours is I train the first lesson of everything that I teach the first time around. Okay. So heel, sit, stay, down, come, place. Okay. 6 commands. You watch your dog. That is the first lesson. That's the first experience with the e-collar or whatever, learning real time. Let's say, like I mentioned with Indiana, I'm working with her. It's her very first lesson. I start to use the collar. She freaks out, she panics, she pees, okay? You're gonna see me work through it, and you're gonna see me get her to the other side. Because you have to understand how to do that. Because if that happens to you, and you go, I think this is kind of what we do, right? And you're doing it incorrectly, you're not gonna get anywhere. In fact, you can make things worse, okay? So, but when you go, oh, I saw this before, Jesse did it in the video, I have an idea, a better idea, because I saw it, of what I need to do, right? I think people think with board and trains, it's kind of like a machine. You drop the dog off, they get trained, you pick the dog up, and everything's perfect. And I go, no, this is an animal. It's not a vehicle. right? There's a lot of nuances here. We got 2 different personality types. So her training video versus her training video may look very different, right? I had another client, I forgot the breed is, they had 2 dogs from the same litter, completely different reactions to the collar. One freaked out and expressed anal glands and was like attacking me. The other one was like super easy, right? And I was like, it's a good thing you had 2 dogs from the same litter because you got to see the difference. That they're like, oh, because if they only had the one dog, the crazy dog, I would have looked like I don't know what I'm doing. Because they're like, oh, wow, I've never seen this. But because they had the 2 and they're like, oh, wow, like that one dog is super neurotic, whereas this dog is like pretty just straightforward. I go, right. I'm like, it's just 2 different personality types. Okay. But the first week video or week 1 is always the longest, anywhere between 2 to 3 hours long. Okay. If I have a dog longer than a week, you get a video for each week we have the dog. So if the dog was here for 2 weeks, 2 videos, 3 weeks, 3 videos, okay? First week, obviously, it's the foundational stuff. Sit, stay down, come, place, heel. Shaping everything, conditioning everything. Even if the dog has had previous training, I throw it out the window. I shape it from the ground up, okay? I edit the video. I send it to you. You begin watching at your leisure, okay? I start week 2. Week 2, we start advancing the training on the long leash. So I already start building towards off leash by week 2, okay? If I have a dog for week 3 and then 4, week 3 would be, we're in an area where there's more distractions, so like our activity room, there's dogs around, all that stuff being worked on the long leash. Week 4 is the dog is completely off leash, we're doing the training. Week 2 is usually around 45 minutes to an hour in terms of length. Weeks 3 and 4 are typically around 30 minutes because all the learning is in week 1, okay? And it just gets easier because I'm advancing the obedience, okay? Some things that we may not be able to catch would be like, a lot of times we get reactive dogs and we see no reactivity here, okay? So if I can't replicate the reactivity, then I can't demonstrate to the owner this is what we do. But I tell the owners, you have your board and train video, watch it, begin implementing. And then when you're ready, call me in, and then I come in and I go, what do you want to work on? Jesse, obedience is great, but we still have an issue with the reactivity. No problem, let me show you how to address the reactivity now, okay? So the follow-ups that come with the board and train are meant to complement them, like the videos. Sometimes, usually with recall, come and called, people have a hard time transferring that to themselves. So that's almost always, I know there's going to be a class on the recall now to help the person understand what the exercise is. Sometimes there's things like people coming into the home, right? Can't really replicate that here because this is a dog training facility. Reactivity, resource guarding, stuff that we can't really guarantee we can replicate, people use their follow-ups to address, okay? And then I come in and show you how to do that stuff real time. Question on any of that stuff?
So, for example, like if you were to do 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and then we come and pick them up, we get 2 videos, and we wanted to do another 2 weeks, would that just continue on?
We don't prorate.
Oh, okay.
We don't prorate, correct. So somebody just asked that earlier. So for example, I have a client right now. I trained their first dog. Their second dog is here. It's a bull terrier named Eggy. He's doing a 3-week board and train. The previous dog did a 2-week board and train, and they want her to go fully off leash, but they want us to do all the work. So they booked another 2-week. So a 2-week is $2,750, and then they paid another $2,750 because it was broken apart. I have another client who did a 3-week because they have a 1-week vacation for Thanksgiving and a 2-week vacation for Christmas, but they booked up front. So they said, Jesse, we want you for 3 weeks, but we want to split it up. And we go, no problem. So they paid $3,750, which would be cheaper because they're committing up front, but they can split it up to cover both of their trips or what have you, okay?
When we do that second, with your previous client with that example, when we do that second set of 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
that'll be the 3rd and 4th week.
Correct. I pick up where we left off. So we do have, just as FYI, a tune-up board and train, okay? I always tell my clients, a tune-up board and train, we're reviewing what the dog was taught. I'm not advancing anything. So for like Longanisa, who's a dog that's coming back for another 2 weeks, I asked them, do you want a tune-up or do you want me to advance her? And they go, we want you to advance her. I go, then that's gonna be a regular board and train, $2,750, whereas a tune-up is like $1,375. Like it's cheaper, but I'm just reviewing stuff. If that makes sense. But like if they had booked for 4 weeks up front and then just did 2 weeks now or then, and then decided to save the other 2 weeks for later, they would have just paid up front and then booked the second 2 weeks whenever they were ready without paying more. The reason is I only take 4 board and trains at a time because I don't want to overwhelm myself or the staff. Make sure that the quality, I don't want 10 dogs here and then quality suffers. Plus with filming and editing hours of footage, it is a lot of work. Let's say you came back in the new year, in March, you're like, hey, we want to do another 2 weeks. Now you're in the boarding process all over again. And then we got to get you scheduled and all that stuff. So that's why. And it's also to help kind of incentivize people like to kind of decide up front, like, do I want Jessie for X amount of time, or do I just want this much or what have you? It's just less admin work because it's a constant new people signing up for consultations, one-on-ones, board and trains, daycare and trains. It just makes it easier to know what they want up front so we can book my calendar accordingly. Okay? Other questions? So for the remote collar, I gotta think off the top of my head. So I'm gonna assume you're probably gonna want like a family system style setup. Okay. So with remote collar, it's typically one remote to one dog, but then there's one remote to two dogs. Okay. But then if it's one remote to two dogs, then if one of you has it and the other person doesn't, well, now you're kind of stuck. Okay. So there's what I call the family system. The family system is you both have a remote and both remotes control both dogs. Okay. We can send you an estimate. I can tell you off the top of my head, I believe a family system, including tax, is going to run around 700 to 800-ish. Okay. It's an investment. They last for years. I had my first batch of e-collars for about 10 years before I finally had to replace them. Okay. They're fully waterproof. The system is definitely at least a 3/4 mile, but I'm pretty sure it's 1 mile range. Okay.
Dog collars they wear all day, every day?
Nope. Your dogs will only have them when you need them. So if you're going for a walk, you need them. Guests coming over, you need them. They're great dogs otherwise, you don't need them. Okay. So a very common question that I get is, Jessie, when does the e-collar go away? And I tell the clients, when you need it, it doesn't. Okay. It has nothing to do with the training, the methods. It has nothing to do with my skills as a trainer. It's what we call opportunistic behavior. Okay. Do you ladies drive? Do you go on the expressway? Do you go the speed limit? Okay. You see a squad car, what happens?
Slow down.
You slow down. So that's opportunistic behavior. You go, okay, there's no cop cars. I got to get to work. I'm going to speed. Oh, I don't want a ticket. There's a cop car. Let me slow down. But the moment you pass them up and you know it's safe, you speed back up again, right? So think of the e-collar as a cop on a collar. When it's present, your dog's going to behave, right? They're going to be much more reliable because they understand threat of consequences there. But the moment you take that off, they're going to push the boundaries, right? So if you have your dogs off leash without the e-collars, and let's say they got good prey drive, right? And they're chasing squirrels, and you're like, hey, get over here. And they're like, oh, you don't have that collar on me today. What happens if I don't do it? Well, now you have no means of consequence. And that's what creates a gambler, okay? So it's just opportunistic behavior. It's nothing good or bad. It's just kind of how it is with dogs or animals, but even humans. But if you follow up with the training as I instruct, it's simply present, just in case, right? I can always tell when a client is too low in the collar because they're constantly using it, right? They'll tell me like, oh, Jessie, like, I use this every day. I'm like actively? And they go, yeah, at least 5 times on a walk. I go, you're too low in the collar. You should be at 0 times. My goal for the client is it's 0 times for pressing the button, right? But that means they were using it at the correct level for the dog. Every dog is different. I've had dogs whose numbers were like 85. I've had dogs whose numbers were 15. Okay, it comes down to the temperament. Indiana's number could be higher than Lola's number. Even though she's the softer dog, physically speaking with the e-collar, she could have a higher tolerance. Like I've seen stuff like that. But people tend to assume things based upon what they know of the dog, But I go, I don't know. I'll figure it out once I start working with them, But, if you're following through with the training, as I instruct at the correct levels for the settings and everything, you should go like, wow, I've been walking the girls for, a month now, and I can't remember the last time I pressed the button. That means you're doing everything correctly. Okay? Does that make sense? Other questions?
I guess realistically speaking, if
Mhm.
we were to do the 4-week program, I mean, from your experience, do you think our goals are tangible?
Yes. It's just, are you willing to follow through? So the one drawback to a board and train is, let's say the dog's number ends up being extraordinarily high, and the owner, again, like let's say I'm going to take Indiana for example, and I go, hey guys, here's Indiana. She did great. Obedience is awesome. She's off leash trained, all that stuff. And they go, her number is 95. Okay. And then you go home and then you're reinforcing the training and you go like, wow, 95. The e-collar max is at 127. Okay. That's 3/4 of the power. Is human logic and emotion starts to kick in. And the human goes, I don't need 95. Let me try 45. Okay. And then, but if she needs 95 and you're at 45, she's going to go, okay, you're trying to do what Jesse was doing, but you don't really mean it or you don't want to do it because you're at half the power. Like the dog will play that. And that's what holds the training back. But the moment the owner goes to where they need to go, guess what happens? Dog is great. Because I don't pick the number, the dog does. But that's why I film it. So you go, oh, so like let's say during like when I do my one-on-ones, my in-persons, my privates or whatever, we start at 15. It always starts at 15. Even in the board and trains, it starts at 15. And we work our way up, okay? So the owner, because it's they themselves working their way up, they understand if we end up being at 80, why we're at 80. You know, whereas with the board and train, you're not really, you'll see some of that process, right? But you're not getting the full experience because you're not the one that was doing it. So like I had a client, her dog was approximately 25 to 30-ish pounds with the reactivity of like a power breed dog, like a pity. Like it was my worst case of 23. Her video's on my YouTube. It's a 45-minute video. It's behavior 101 and it should pop up and you see the dog, it's a tiny little dog. The craziest reactivity. The dog could be over 100 feet away. The dog was barking nonstop, okay? It took me up until the 5th class to finally resolve the reactivity. Week 1, week 2, week 3, we came to week 4. The owner was like, you know, she's doing better with her obedience, but her reactivity is still terrible. And I said, okay, today we're gonna get it done. She had the collar that I'm recommending for you guys, which is meant for a 70-pound dog and over, okay, which is like a Rottweiler, okay, for this little 25-pound dog. We had to max out the collar and correct the dog for reactivity at max power, okay? And I told her, you're gonna do this for 2 weeks. And then in 2 weeks, I want you to check in with me. If you've not seen progress, let me know. We have to make adjustments. Otherwise, I'll see you for class 5. She shows up for class 5, reactivity was done. Because she stuck to what I told her. But human logic goes, I have this e-collar meant for a Rottweiler, and my dog is only 25 pounds. That's what holds the person back. You ever heard the saying, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight, but the fight in the dog? You heard that? Very true. Typically when I have difficulty with reactivity, it's a power breed. It's a pity, it's a bull terrier, it's a Rottie, it's a powerful dog. In 15 years, this little 25-pound dog had the intensity and just like the vigilance. Like it was like if you watch her video, like you go, wow, this is like insane, you know, which is why I did that because it does happen, you know, but I don't come in, how do you say, like, oh, let's go to max power and just do it because the human needs to see the process. Even though I may know this is the answer, the human themselves has to understand the process. So if they have to reinforce it, they go like, I understand why I'm doing this. It's because it's necessary for my dog, okay? But that's really, in terms of boarding trains with us, the only thing that would cause failure is that the owner just doesn't follow through, okay?
Yeah, I think Evelyn and I have been hoping to get on the same page with training and consistency, and we just need to have a foundation set up with them and for us to just kind of execute. Since we're both very busy with our careers, it just takes a lot of time for us to kind of be patient with them and build that foundation. So I'm excited to, work with you so that we could build that foundation. That's something that we can keep on continuing after.
He's very sweet. Do keep in mind, regardless of the length of program you go with, there's always going to be effort on your part. right? Because a con to a board and train is that we train the dogs, they're trained with us, and we got to transfer that over to you, right? The difference is if we have a dog for 2, 3, or 4 weeks, they're already able to perform that skill set, but now you have to catch up to their skill set, right? So like if we take, exactly. But that's why I like the videos, because it's on your time. You just kind of watch it. Okay, I learned this little bit. I'm going to go off and practice it for a few days and come back and I'm going to watch another little bit. Even if it takes you 2 months, like if you did a 4-week board and train, even if it took you 2 months to get to like the last video, they don't forget anything. Okay, so that's one of the most beautiful things about e-collar is that the dogs never forget the training. I have a client, I trained their dog in 2020. They got lax with the collar, they got lazy, and then they recently, within the past week, emailed us like, hey, could you send us the links to our training videos? Like we want to get back on our training. I sent them the links, and within 24 hours, the wife emailed me. She's like, Jesse, she's like, is it normal for a dog to like remember the training? Because it was like we didn't skip a beat. I go, yes. Yes, okay. With the way that I train, the dogs never forget it. They'll get sloppy, right? But the moment you kick in, like let's say you did the training, something happens, you couldn't practice for a year. You come back like, let's review those videos Jesse sent us. The moment you start implementing everything, it just falls right back in line, okay? Which is why for me, it's just the best training tool, okay? Everything else takes nuance, the technical skill, timing, like all those things. Remote collar really eliminates that stuff, makes it very simple. Okay. Other questions?
If we decided to commit to 4 weeks
Mm-hmm.
and we did 2 weeks first, how far apart?
Can you space them?
Too far, yeah.
There's no such thing.
Okay.
Yeah, just because of the way that I train. I will say that once you commit, right? Once you're like, oh, we're gonna do 4 weeks, there are no refunds. But let's say you do 2 weeks, and then it's like, something came up, and we can't finish the program. Then I go, well, we're not gonna say thank you for your money, and then you can't utilize what you invested in us. If you need to board the dogs, daycare, if you need retail or something, we'll make sure you get your value back, okay? But once you've kind of committed, then it's like, okay, but you could come back next December and then finish the next two weeks there. Like, we don't care. We do ask that you let us know up front, and we do remind clients that it is your responsibility to make sure that you come back to finish the second half of the program or what have you. We have had people take a gap and then they come back and they're upset with us because they're like, hey, you never contact me to like book my half of the program. We're like, that's not us, that's like for you. If you'd like to book it, you're welcome to, but we have, again, like it's a new clients each month that we can't keep track of all our previous clients, okay? But yeah, whenever you're ready, you're like, hey, we want to book. I would say the sooner you know, the better, because remember, we do only take 4 at a time. So that this way, if it's February, you need it for August, already reach out, so that this way you don't come in July, and it's like, oh, well, we already have 4 board and trains already booked because we're so close. Also, if you train 2 dogs concurrently, you get 10% off the second dog. Anything else? From my assessment so far, the minimum I would recommend, more 2 for her. She's like a 3 for me because of her softness. Okay, so I feel like that first week is going to be really trying to get her past her, I don't want to say inability, but she's had a hard time with stress. Yeah, but more time to have her to work her through more stress. Okay, I expect both of them to reach the same level. It's just, I think her tolerance for the stress is going to be a little bit less. Okay, so at minimum 2, her should be like a 3. You could do a 2, but by the end of the second week, I don't know where she would fall. Does that make sense? So like Eggy, the reason why he's doing a 3, because Longa only did a 2, is because Longa did our puppy Head Start program, and this dog I've not touched ever. So I told him that first week is to get all the training in that Longa had in puppy Head Start, and then weeks 2 and 3, I'm doing e-collar work to make sure that they're leaving on the same level or whatever, okay? So completely up to you. But the minimum I would suggest would be 2, and then more obviously would be better. And if you wanted to break it up however you like, it's completely fine. We do ask that you do at least week chunks. We don't want to do 7 days here, 3 days here, 2 days here, whatever. For the board and trains, if it's split up, we ask for a week at a time, just because it takes a week for each phase.
Yeah. Do you think she should do 3 weeks consecutively?
What we could do is we could do the 2, like if you did 3 and 3, and then you're like, okay, we're only going to be gone for 2 weeks, but we don't know where she's going to be at. And let's say we get to week 2 and I go, you know what, she did great. If you want to come back and finish week 3 together, then I'll let you know. So that's not a problem, because I don't know how she's going to do. My anticipation is because she's so soft with stress, I think I'm going to need time, but I've had dogs be the complete opposite and it'd be completely fine. So.
4 weeks?
You can talk about it, mull it over. There's no rush.
I think
We're decided.
yeah, I think we talked to Tina, your colleague,
Mhm.
about scheduling, and we were hoping to get them in as soon as the first week of November.
Okay.
was, coming up, and she said we still had availability.
Yes. So look at our dates. Yeah, because that's a week away. So yes, so you would be spots 3 and 4, because Longa comes next Wednesday.
How do your weeks run? So Wednesday's day 1?
Whenever you drop the dog off is day 1. Yeah.
Yeah, so for sure 2 weeks and then 2 weeks in March. 2 weeks now, 2 weeks in March.
Oh, I see. Sure. Yeah, if you know your dates already, and if coming closer to like the March dates, if it's like something changes, just reach out and say, hey, we had a change and we can move it. It's not a problem. But if you call us like the night before and like, hey, we actually had a hiccup and we have to push back a week, that we can't guarantee. If we can accommodate, we accommodate. We go, no problem. But if I already have like 4 boarding trains or something, then I go, uh-oh, okay. And then for the family system stuff, I'll have Tina send you an estimate. I have to order that directly from Doctra. I'll do it on behalf of you so you don't have to worry about shipping and all that stuff. And then by the time they have, yes, so we have our own collars. So I train with our own collars and then I order them. So by the time you're ready to pick up the girls, you get them, okay? And since if they're both doing 4 whatever, what I'll do is I'll do an additional video that shows you how to work with both dogs at the same time. Because each video is individual, it's respective to the dog, okay? But since you're doing longer programs, I'll happily throw in an additional video that shows you how to handle 2 dogs, because it's a little bit trickier than 1 dog, okay? Possibly prong collars. A lot of times people move past them. They don't need them anymore with the remote collar. But when you are working more than one dog at a time, the prong collar does help because you're controlling multiple animals, okay? And there's a little bit of a skill set there. But with your follow-ups, you also get plenty of follow-ups. So with the 4-week, you'd get 7 follow-ups per dog. So that's 14, okay? So we're gonna be able to cover a lot of stuff. They don't expire. I have a client that I trained her dog in 2019, and she reached out because her dogs recently got in a fight because they brought home a baby, and it changed the dynamic of things. So, and she's not used up all her follow-ups, so I'm like, we got follow-ups we can still use, okay? But we'll send you all that information. Tina will get you set up, and then we will just need a fecal. I'm assuming their vaccinations are up to date, okay? So we just need a clear fecal for the girls. You've done those before, I'm assuming? Yeah. Yep. Take those to the vet, they send us the records or whatever, and then we just get the process going.
How old do you need, how recent do you need that fecal?
Within a week of their stay, correct. Yeah. As long as it's in that 1 week time frame. We've had dogs where like, we had a client, they gave us the fecal was literally completed the day before their boarding. We got the fecal, they dropped off their dogs, and then the following day, they had worms infested in their poop. And the vet said it was most likely they did the fecal during the gestational period, so it didn't pick it up. Okay, so we do a week because it gives a week for if there's any changes or anything like that. Plus, sometimes clients aren't anticipating that they're going to get Giardia back or something. And that has also happened. And also it gives time for like the medicine to kick in, so at least the initial disease or bacteria is killed off.
Yeah, we just did her fecal like a week ago, so we'll just go to.
Oh, that's fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I thought it was like going to be an older one. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Anything else? All right. Well, if you have anything that you may have forgotten to ask, feel free to reach out to Tina. If they pertain to me, she'll ping me. I'll send her an answer. Otherwise, any scheduling stuff, all that she handles. It's either Tina or Maria that'll handle the onboarding process. They'll send you a link to set up the girls with the Ginger profile. Ginger is our boarding software. So we can have their vaccination records uploaded and all that stuff, and allows us to keep track of their expiration dates, also anything that you book. Any dogs that have trained with us also are welcome to utilize our boarding services. So like in the future, like most places require, like even us, require dogs to attend daycare at least once a week in order to use boarding. But dogs that we've trained are welcome to come at any point without having to do daycare once a week, okay? Because I have clients in St. Charles, Lombard, Winnetka, Skokie, Hoffman Estates, Indiana, the border of Wisconsin. Like I don't expect them to come once a week to come board with us, And their dogs like have to come to us because they're like behavioral cases or whatever. But people who have not trained with us are required to attend daycare once a week. So, okay. Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you ladies. And as you can see, she finally started to relax, but it took a little bit of effort there. But yeah, if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, look forward to hearing back from you and working with you ladies, okay?